Welcome, everybody. Let's talk about dirty globalist Schwab, Charles Schwab. And I'll give a little background about why I say that. And for a lot of people that know this, but a lot of people may not know, Schwab bought TD Ameritrade. You can see it here on there. TD Ameritrade clients have been notified to create Schwab a login account, blah, blah, blah. So they've been moving accounts over. They acquired TD Ameritrade like a few years ago, whatever it was. And they've been moving accounts little by little. And this weekend was like some of the last accounts they moved over. And I'm going to talk a little bit about dirty globalist Schwab and their dirty tactics. And, no surprise. I put out a video about Schwab, I think, maybe a month or two ago, a few weeks back, about how they're a horrible broker. And I had an account at TD Ameritrade that was moved this weekend over to Schwab. Mine was one of the last accounts moved over because I had some certain assets in that account that they wanted to move over those type of assets and those accounts last. Okay. So, excuse me. So that happened this weekend. And, I was prepared because I know Schwab's nature. They're just not a good broker. And, I kind of had my ducks in a row and I was ready to deal with any shenanigans that they were going to pull. And sure enough, true to their color, they totally pulled some shenanigans over the weekend, which I was not surprised. But let's talk about it. We're just going to I'll give a little background, a little context of what I'm talking about, and then we'll dive into some specifics. So I had some corporate bonds in my account, quite a few. Pretty sizable portfolio of corporate bonds. Now, for anybody that knows, a broker can, if they so choose, allow you to borrow against certain assets in your account, right? That's called margin. So that's different than a cash account. I'm not going to dive into all the differences, but the basics is with margin, you're borrowing. You're not using your cash in the account. And there are different things you can borrow against. You can technically borrow against stock, you can borrow against bonds, and there are probably other assets you can borrow against. But one of the most common things to borrow against is corporate bonds, okay? So I'll talk about why sometimes that's actually a good thing. So why isn't it an advantage? Because with corporate bonds, of course, they're paying you interest. That's what they do. They usually pay every 6 months, some pay monthly, but most of them pay twice a year. So you're getting interest, in your account from the bonds. That's nice, especially if you're good at hunting down, value in corporate bonds, which I'm pretty good at it. Been doing it for a lot of years. So on the first thing is there that you get interest. That's nice. The second thing is if your broker allows you to borrow against those bonds, right, for margin, right, you borrow against them. Let's say you have $10,000 in bonds, they might give you 50% borrowing on those bonds. So let's say you can borrow $5,000. Now, I don't mean borrow like take it out of the account, though technically I guess that's possible, but it wouldn't be 50%. But anyway, I don't mean borrow like take out of the account and go on a vacation. I mean borrow to buy take other positions, maybe other stocks, maybe even other bonds, maybe futures, maybe options, whatever. Very, very common for that to happen. Okay. So that's a little bit of the background. I had quite a few corporate bonds. And with TD Ameritrade, almost all of my bond holdings were marginable. In other words, they gave me some margin on all my bonds, right? Except for one. One was like a really speculative, super speculative, and they just said, no, we're not going to let you borrow against it. It's fine. I get it. It was a risky bond, but I was getting a high return on it, so I didn't mind. So that's what TD Ameritrade did, right? TD Ameritrade allowed to have most of the bonds I held in my account to be marginable, and that's awesome. I could trade against them. I could use them. I could borrow as much or as little as I wanted, depending on what the margin was available, right? I managed it, accordingly. And I never had margin calls at TD Ameritrade because I knew not to overdo it. All right. Now, I've dealt with brokers like Charles Schwab before, the real shady type. TD Ameritrade was, I'm not saying they were perfect, but they were fairly balanced. Their policies were pretty well known. After a while, you knew what to do and not to do with them, and you can navigate your way. And I thought TD Ameritrade overall, their TOS product was awesome, which I talked about that before. That Tom and his team from over at Tasty Trade, who I think now are called Tasty Works, they created that software many years ago, and TD Ameritrade bought it, and then now Schwab has bought it. That's kind of the history of the TOS platform. But anyway, the really good TOS platform, really liked it. TD Ameritrade, they let us use the platform, and it was really, really a nice platform. And also, I felt the policies at TD Ameritrade, they were pretty fair, right? Especially the marginable status on the bonds was nice. Okay, so that's the background. So now Schwab, over the last year or whatever, 18 months, 12 months, whatever they've been moving accounts, TD Ameritrade accounts over there to Schwab. And they told me months ago in email and gave me alerts along the way, hey, your account's going to be moved on such and such a date, which was just this past weekend. Okay. And they said, there's nothing you really have to do. If you have an account, you're good to go, which I already had an account at Schwab because I had a small holding there. When I bought another bond on them like years ago, I never really used them that much. I just had one bond in there, and I just let it sit there. But I already had an account, so I didn't have to create a new one. All's good. They're like, you're good. We're just gonna move everything over because you already have a login. You're good to go. But I know Schwab's nature. They're totally globalist. They're dirty, and they don't care who they run over. You can tell they're a juggernaut, right? They purchased TD Ameritrade. They're first of all, just a little go off on a tangent here for 1 second. I feel like Schwab acquiring TD Ameritrade is totally antitrust. And how the hell they were allowed to do that, whatever. It's just, everybody's bought and paid for in today's world, man. It's just so pathetic, right? I mean, they're a huge juggernaut now. Just think about all the accounts they absorbed from TD Ameritrade. Right, they have a huge percentage of the marketplace for accounts, and how that wasn't antitrust, I don't know. Whatever, it's almost a monopoly, right? But whatever, you got Fidelity and some other big ones, so they're so they're like, I guess it's not a monopoly. Go ahead and let them do it. But today, everybody's on the take, right? Any of the Democrats that control DC, all those agencies, they're all on the take. They don't care. As long as you pay us, no problem. You can gobble up TD Ameritrade. You're good to go. A retail account holder would have no chance in court against Charles Schwab. Forget about it. No freaking way. You'll never win. Everybody's bought and paid for. The judge, the lawyers, and don't tell me it's not true. It is true. They're totally all bought and paid for. Schwab will win every damn lawsuit anybody brought up against them. At least from a retail perspective. Got no shot of winning against them. And it would have to be like super abhorrent to get a ruling in your favor. Because all the rules are totally in favor of the broker. So anyways, over the weekend, I was prepared for their shenanigans. I'm like, these people, I know Schwab's going to pull some shenanigans. There's going to be they're either going to tell me some bonds or all the bonds are not marginable. They're going to change the marginable amount on the bonds. They're going to totally pull some shady stuff. And true to color, man, they did exactly what they did. I would say of all the bonds I had, only 2 bonds were marginable. And I had maybe like 8, I think, total. Pretty good size holding across 8 bonds. 8 different corporations, but I hold multiple quantity of each, if that makes sense. So I had a pretty big holding. And I had some Ford bonds, and I can't remember the other one. I have quite a few bonds from different corporations, and they only honored like 1 or 2 of the bonds that came over from TD Ameritrade and said, okay, these we're going to allow this to be still to be marginable. The rest, no margin at all. Not even, usually give you 50%. They didn't even give you 10% or 25. No, nothing, just 0. I'm like, I just knew they were going to do it. Totally knew they were going to do it. So I was mentally prepared for Schwab's dirty tricks, because what they did this weekend was a complete money grab. So they forced retail accounts that were borrowed, right, and had margin debt. they forced them to liquidate those positions. Like if you didn't go do it yourself, their risk department was going to do it for you. Like they were just going to, they would just wholesale liquidate whatever they wanted. And you can guarantee they would do it in their favor because they would take those assets, basically just steal the assets, right? Now, some people will say, well, it's not stealing, you need to cover the margin. I don't have a problem with brokers expecting retail account holders to manage their margin. That's reasonable, of course. What's not acceptable is they never notified any of the TD Ameritrade account holders that, hey, for those people that are holding corporate bonds, here are the bonds that are not going to be marginable. They've had a year to tell us. You know how easy it is for the risk department to run a report? It's like super easy. Just run the report. You run a report, you find out all the accounts that are going to be, at risk, right? And you notify them. That's it. You do an email blast. It's simple. It can be done in like a couple hours. Because I know I used to work in software development. It's easy to run these reports off your data. It's super easy. A couple criteria. These are the bonds that are going to be marginable. These are the ones that are not. The ones that come out on the not marginable report, those are the people that get emails. Right? It's that simple. You notify them. You tell them these are the positions that are going to be not marginable. Please be prepared to make adjustments. I would have made those adjustments in TD Ameritrade before the account got moved over. Right? I just would have had more time to think about it and get creative about it and be more efficient for tax purposes and finding the best prices and all that. You follow what I mean? But not Schwab. They intentionally decided to wait till the very last day for people who have corporate bonds in their account and move them last, because they knew ahead of time that they were going to force retail account holders to liquidate those bonds. That's called a money grab. And what they were hoping for is some people would the account would be busted. And I almost positive some accounts were probably busted today over the weekend. Like people were not prepared to deal with that is just dirty. To not notify TD Ameritrade account holders that they were going to change the margin status on some of your holdings, that's nasty. That's just, that's Schwab right there. That epitomizes Charles Schwab's dirty tactics. They've always been that way. They're super shady. They're total globalist. Like I said, Ameritrade wasn't perfect, but they didn't do crap like that. For me personally, I was prepared. I don't put myself in a position where a broker is going to have leverage over me to the point where they can crush my account. I even did that with Ameritrade. I made sure that I still had my ducks in a row, that if I had to liquidate, I'd be okay. So I was prepared for it. So to me, it wasn't that big of a deal. I had way more value in my account than my margin debt was. So it wasn't a big deal. I did what I had to do. But this was just so dirty. It's like, I know Schwab doesn't care. They don't give a crap. They'll run over people like a Mack truck, They don't even care if I'm going to put this video out because I'm telling it like it is. I don't care if they're not going to contact me because they could care less about retail account holders. They just are looking to dominate, and it's all leftist garbage. All of it's so socialist, leftist, like all this, like the WEF was forcing all these brokers, which Schwab, I'm sure, is on board with it 100% for the last couple of years, to be, like globalist aware kind of garbage. If you have holdings that are fossil fuel oriented, you're going to get penalized. All this kind of total nonsense, right? That's Charles Schwab to the nines. That's exactly what they're totally like walking hand in hand with WEF. That's exactly what they are. They're globalists to the nines. So, they also, of course, Schwab, of course, also acquired the TOS platform, which is an awesome platform, right? And they pretty much kept it, as far as I could tell, really similar to what it was with TD Ameritrade. So they got that going for them. But like this has happened to me before. Like one other broker, a boutique broker I worked with many years ago in the Northeast. They did some shady stuff, like really shady stuff. And I had to find creative ways to get out of that broker without losing my backside, you know. But I had to be patient for like a few months and finally wormed my way out of that broker without them stealing my assets. But Schwab's very much like that. They're just asset stealers, you know. I mean, they probably made so much money this weekend. Put in the, you know, they just brought the hammer down on quite a few retail accounts. Because I guarantee I wasn't the only retail account that had to deal with this trickery over the weekend, right? The dirty, nasty, globalist Schwab. So I just wanted to share it. You know, I know the world doesn't care, guys and gals. Nobody gives a crap, right? The world just marches on, you know what I mean? And Schwab sure the heck doesn't care. They don't care. They're so huge. They don't care about somebody like me putting out a video telling the world about how bad Schwab is, because they know they have so much power now. You can say whatever you want about Schwab. It ain't gonna make any difference to them. They're a nasty broker. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with them. Like, I like the TLS platform, and I'm in a pretty good spot on my account. But yeah, when a broker breaks trust like that, it's really hard to continue to work with them. So I don't know. I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna do moving forward. I haven't made up my mind yet, but if I can, the thing about holding corporate bonds is not a lot of brokers will take corporate bonds, so you can't just move them from one broker to the next. There's only a few that'll let you move those kind of assets. Like Fidelity will let you do it, and there's maybe one or two others that will take corporate bonds. But I like to trade derivatives. I trade futures, and occasionally I'll trade options. So it's really tough to have a broker that you can find where you can move your corporate bonds there. And also, or I should say, find a broker that lets you trade futures, which there's a lot of those, but few let you transfer bonds. And they all tell you the same thing. Well, you can sell your bonds and move the cash. Well, who the heck would want to sell your bonds, you know? Most people aren't really familiar with corporate bonds, but for people like myself that buy bonds and hold them, there's a reason why we buy them and hold them. We buy them and hold them because for retirement, they're extremely handy, right? I mean, you're getting a nice return. I have bonds with expiration dates way out in the future, way out in the future. They'll be around, you know, all the way through my retirement years. So those bonds are going to generate income for me. That's why I own them, right? Because when you're older, you don't want to be working. You might work part-time or something like that, but you don't want to be working. You just want the money to be coming in. So as a lot of people, as they get older, they move their money into fixed income, okay? But I'm pretty good at trading corporate bonds, and I know how to generate income off of corporate bonds, and I know how to pick the best ones, okay? So it's not a good strategy to liquidate corporate bonds. Now you just got cash. Well, what are you going to do with that? You're not earning any money on it. You know, you got to know you can't have your money sitting idle. No good trader / investor wants their money sitting idle. That's insanity. So that's kind of the big picture in the background. You know, there's not probably most retail account holders don't hold corporate bonds, but there's enough of us out there that do, and they make up, you know, a pretty good amount of money. And Schwab, oh my gosh, a dirty. All right, I just wanted to share that. Video's getting kind of long. Hope everybody's having a great Monday. The market's doing great. I mean, there's plenty of opportunity both in S&P 500 and gold today. I'll put out a video later on today for the members, and we'll talk about the market. All right, talk to you all later.